And welcome back to another race recap. Last time we were in Spain, where the weather remained dry all weekend leading up to the race. However, the rain started to trickle in during the formation lap, causing teams to scramble in, deciding the optimal time to switch to wet weather tyres.
The start of the race seemed to go quite well with the rain coming in Sector 1, then Sector 3, and a shocking surprise to see Alpine's rookie fighting at the front of the grid, thanks to some upgrades that came in for Alpine. Although, as the race progressed and the rain continued to get heavier, teams were forced to mix up their strategies and drivers had to work their way back up the grid from their original positions, making for a very interesting race.
We saw some driving that we haven't really seen yet this season due to there not being much rainy weather, but that's sure to change when it comes to the second half of the season. We always enjoy a show when the rain comes down. Some teams may not like the rain while others get opportunities that you normally wouldn't get. We've also come to find out that Castrol Edge will be taking the mantle of Alpine's primary sponsor come Silverstone, so we will be looking forward to that, perhaps a livery change for the remainder of the season.
We also are hearing that Haas is narrowing down on what kind of title sponsors they will be pairing with, but they do not want to release that till later in the season.
And to wrap up the race recap, apologies that we got a bit sidetracked. We had a late red flag, which resulted in a sprint-like race to the end on Inters, and hometown hero Carlos Sainz takes the win. Now let's get to qualifying here in Austria.
High up in the mountains here at Spielberg, it's time for qualifying on what will be the fastest laps of the season. Stand by for qualifying at the Austrian Grand Prix.
And they are fast laps indeed, as we're pretty confident here in Austria, coming around the final corner. Only a 10-turn racetrack here, and time is just over a second. 106.660. That's P4 provisional for SQ1. It's good enough to get us into Q2 for the sprint race. Coming around these final few corners once again, we have some open air ahead of us. There's a Haas ahead of us as we're running another set of mediums, and that's going to be 106.054. That's going to be yet another good run to get us into Q3 for the sprint race. And this time around, it's not really that much different. So P10, you see our previous time at a 106.3, and we barely get enough time out of the last few corners. We had to be careful not to push too much, and that's only good enough for P9 for the sprint race.
So it's all about speed in today's sprint. Not very many laps and no chance to get ahead on strategy. Who here today has the raw skill to take them to the top? The Spielberg circuit then is situated 700 meters above sea level, with just 10 corners making up one of the shortest laps of the season. One time around here is a distance of around 2.6 miles, with the best overtaking chances into turn 1 or the tight uphill of turn 3. Let's run you through the driver grid order for today's exciting sprint. Charles Leclerc lines up on pole position, and Lando Norris lines up alongside. As we continue through the rest of the grid today, we have Sainz, Verstappen, Oscar Piastri, Fernando Alonso, Stroll, Hamilton, Johnson, Russell, Perez, Gasly, Ricciardo, Tsunoda, Hulkenberg, Magnussen, Albon, Joe, Bottas, and Logan Sargent. And with preparations almost complete, let's head trackside for today's sprint. And alongside me today, a man who I'm always pleased to see join me in the commentary box, Anthony Davidson. Well, they say that a change is as good as a rest, and whilst there's not much rest on show in the sprint format today, there's definitely a change to what we're usually seeing on the track. So we're getting close to the start of the race. What will this driver be experiencing? Big nerves? Big excitement? What?
Always extra nerves at the start of the race, Gruffy. Probably at the start of the race, it's where your heart rate's at its highest in anticipation. And you've got to be in the right mindset. You've got to be thinking there inside the car, what can go right? How can I be opportunistic rather than what can go wrong? And how do I protect my position? Look forward and stay positive. It's easy to say, very hard to do when you're in that position.
All right, a pretty strong sprint quali. We're on track for some points, so let's be sure to keep it that way. Good luck out there.
The formation lap gets underway ahead of today's sprint. It's going to be interesting to see who gets pole position. As all the cars take their positions on the grid, the final preparations have been made, and all that's left is for the drivers to deliver on track.
All right, so here we are pulling up to our grid slot next to the Mercedes here in P9. Feeling really good about our run in sprint quali, and basically try to run and survive for this sprint race. Try to get some points within the top 8, because the last few races that we've ran, well, the other 2 races that we've ran sprints haven't really been that good for us. We're off to an okay start. That is Stroll ahead of us, off to a bad start there. We're going to be making a move on the left side. You could see a couple, 2-3 wides ahead of us as we almost come in contact with Alonso. That's Hamilton, Perez, and Stroll behind us, 3 wide coming through turn 1 as we're making our way up the hill. Lando Norris already a second clear of Leclerc here for the sprint race, and that's almost 4 wide behind us. Perez, Stroll, and Hamilton really trying to push. We hear some contact behind us as they're trying to push through turn 3. Sector 2 now coming down to turn 4. P7 behind Alonso, ahead of Hamilton. About 6/10 of the gap between myself and Hamilton there. See a lot of position changes behind us as we're still trying to focus on getting heat into these tires and staying behind Alonso to hopefully try and overtake. You can see how much more of a gap Lando Norris already has, almost 2 seconds on this first lap here for the sprint race in Austria. Feeling really confident, and I'm actually keeping a decent distance between myself and Alonso in the Aston Martin. Piastri up into P5, and the 2 Ferraris doing really good. And knowing that we can adjust the wings for the mid-race, I felt really confident basically halfway through this race that I can lower my front and rear wings to increase the straight line speed. So lap 8 now, still P7. Alonso's ahead of Piastri, and Hamilton and Russell are still back there. Stroll in P8 this time ahead of Hamilton. As we look to make a move on the inside of Piastri, very aggressive. We made sure to move our wheel before hitting the braking point. That way it was a legal pass, side by side coming down the hill here with DRS coming into turn 4. That's going to be an overtake into P6. This is going to be a strong fight with Piastri as we currently take up P6 at the time. Alonso is up to P5 ahead of Piastri now. You can see him in the mirror there. Very confident, like I said, here in Austria. Really trying to push the car, and not really having to deal with any oversteer or anything like that. I feel like we really got confident with our setup and how we are able to control it as we look to fight. For P5, Alonso, it's still 1.2 seconds ahead, and that's a very strong race for us. So lap 9 to start. Piastri still fighting for us to make a move, and we're moving on to the final lap. And you can see the train of cars behind us. You see Piastri, you see Stroll, and you see the 2 Mercedes looking to make a move on us. That's Piastri making a move. Cat in the background. As we're fighting for P7, pretty much. Coming down side by side through Sector 2, start of Sector 3, and it's pretty much going to be a close one. If he's going to be fighting me through these corners, he's going to be fighting me to the end of the race. So we're currently P6, coming through these final 3 corners. We still have 2 more to go after this one, and we're really pushing the car. We need to get the foot down as fast as we can coming out of the corner. You can see him trying to make a move on the inside. We cover him off, and we're on to the final corner, trying to get the foot down here. And we don't have DRS. That's Piastri with DRS. He's going to beat us to the line. That's going to be, I believe, P7 for us.
Up in the mountains Mountains here at Spielberg, it's time for qualifying on what will be the fastest laps of the season. Stand by for qualifying at the Austrian Grand Prix.
Alright, so here we are, future race qualifying in Q1. Like I said, we feel really confident coming through here. We have the adjusted setup for the front and rear wings. 106.1, so that's an improvement from Q1 for the sprint. Easy way into Q2, and I believe we dropped about 2 to 3 clicks on each front and rear wing. Really pushing the limit there to get into Q3 to be another 106.07, so 106 flat to get us into Q3. And we're currently running P8. A little bit of a hiccup there as we're coming around the final corner, and we're really trying to push this car coming across the line. And that's going to be good enough for pole position here in Austria.
Welcome from the beautiful Styrian Mountains for another chapter in the story of the Austrian Grand Prix. It's one of the shortest laps on the calendar today then, with 7 rights and just 3 lefts, making up the 10 corners of this high-speed circuit. Turn 2 is barely a corner at all. They'll be flat out through there, a left-hand kink into the uphill braking zone of turn 3. Turns 1, 3 and 4 are all potential opportunities to overtake. It's time to see how our drivers are stacking up after yesterday's exciting qualifying session. Johnson lines up on pole position, edging out Lando Norris, who'll start from P2. Considering the rest of the grid, we have Verstappen, Leclerc, Sainz, Fernando Alonso, Russell, Hamilton, Oscar Piastri, Gasly, Albon, Stroll, Ricciardo, Hülkenberg, Magnussen, Bottas, Joe, Sargent, Tsunoda, and Sergio Perez completes our grid. And with lights out just moments away, it's time to go down to the track. And alongside me, a man, well, what more can I say? But he's a legend, Anthony Davidson. Now, sadly, things didn't work out for them last time. It was a bad race. Question is, though, can they recover today?
Yes, they can, Crofty. You've got to put it behind you. Whatever happened last time, I was always told as a driver, park it, forget about it. Obviously, feel the pain when it happens, but then you can't dwell on it and carry that through to the next race. So put it behind you and just crack on with this race coming your way now.
That was an excellent effort out there. I was confident the reduced downforce adjustments would be beneficial. Just remember to look after your tires, and let's aim for a podium finish if we can't secure a win today.
The formation lap gets underway then, and it's going to be interesting today to see how the dry conditions could affect the lifespan of the tyres. As the cars come back towards the grid to line up for the start of the race, each driver will be wanting to get the best start they possibly can. And they'll be hoping to finish today's race on the podium, and failing that, within the points.
Alright, so finally pulling into our grid slot here. Pole position, McLaren on the inside, and then Max Verstappen coming in behind us there in 3rd place. And we're really feeling it coming into this race here. 5 red lights are on. And we are off. Lando Norris on the inside having a good launch. Max Verstappen's trying to split the both of us here. Both Ferraris actually side by side with Verstappen coming through turn 1, making it 3 wide. You can hear the contact coming from then, and we're trying to break away like Lando Norris did in the sprint race. Lando Norris already 4 tenths or so behind us, and this lower wing setup for now is working to our advantage. A little bit more contact there between the Ferraris of Sainz and Leclerc against Verstappen. Verstappen back in P4 as we're really trying to push Norris. The aerodynamic aspect of the McLaren really strong since a recent patch here, so we have to basically start our battle with Lando Norris here as we're coming through sector 2. He's already within 0.3 of a second of us. So lap 2, we're going to be looking at a fight with Lando Norris, DRS coming through the start of sector 2. But right now, we're coming around these final 2 corners, hitting our apex as best as we can, putting the power down. We have to get the heat into these tires. So we'll feel peak temperatures, peak performance here, lap 3 or lap 4 maybe, as the tires start to wear down. We have to worry about Lando Norris here coming up the hill into turn 3, excuse me. As he's closing in, you can see him in the mirror trying to make a move on the left side. We just drift over to the left side for the racing line. We cover him off, no issue there, as we are holding on to pole position. 1 lap so far in the lead, actually in the lead with no pit stops or anything like that to factor in. This fight's going to continue till the end of lap 3, start of lap 4, where Norris is actually trying to make a move on the inside here in turn 1. We give him the room, and he gives us the room out of the corner. And that's Max Verstappen up into P3, 1.3 seconds behind us, as he's still trying to close in. We're fighting Norris at this point, DRS up the hill. We have to think about this really smart, because we qualified in pole position. We're really confident in this track, and we basically have to play the long game. So lap 9, the fight continues to lap 9. We're going back and forth. Verstappen about 3 seconds to go. 3 seconds between us and Verstappen, as Leclerc is still trying to fight him, as we're going back and forth between Norris and I, coming down the hill, and that's going to be a plume of smoke. That's going to be an engine failure for Lando Norris, leaving us a 3-second gap or so between us and Max Verstappen. So, and I don't know what this was. The Norris was on the racing line. You see the train of cars just piling up behind him. No penalty for him. He was going to DNF anyways. But that's going to be around a 3-second gap between myself and Verstappen and the rest of the drivers. Leclerc, Sainz, Alonso, Gasly, Hamilton, Russell. They're all now in a train because of Norris to try and catch up. So the fight brings us to lap 16. Max Verstappen is caught up to us. 0.3 is the gap, but this is the lap we're going to be coming into a pit stop. We're not sure if it's going to be an undercut or an overcut against Verstappen, but we are coming in because we are starting to feel the tire wear on these medium tires as we make around this final corner, and it turns out he's coming in right behind us. He's going to be using the same strategy from medium to hards, so I can already tell at this point in the race that the fight between myself and Verstappen is going to be to the end of the race, because he came in right before us. We didn't have any issues through our pit stop, luckily, as we can see all the other drivers who are staying out. And the gap coming out of the pits has increased a little bit. I'm not sure if there was a mistake on Verstappen's pit entry and pit exit for his pit crew, but we have that gap a little bit compared to what we had coming into the pits. So lap 17, we spend that time warming up the tires. Verstappen already within a second of us. There's a 2-second gap between myself and Paris, so we get a warning there for trying to put power down still. But everybody else coming into the pits other than George Russell. George Russell is a 10-second gap between himself and myself, as Verstappen is basically re-engaging that fight between me and him as we wait and see what we can do with Russell coming into the pits, see if he performed well on the overcut or not, as we saw a little bit of contact, I believe it was, between Verstappen and myself, as we basically continue our fight. There we go. Russell in the pits, Max on the inside. You saw him in the mirror as we cover him off, leaving him room on the inside. And this is where the fun part of the race begins. We have to defend against Verstappen, and if he passes us, we have to make sure we stay with him. Otherwise, we lose the opportunity of our first race win. It's going to be our first race win or podium guaranteed at this point, unless we have an engine failure, which I really hope we don't. A really strong fight between myself and Verstappen, really making sure that I'm hitting my braking points and not coming in contact with him. A little bump there from Verstappen, really pushing himself on the racing line. We're giving him space to make the move. He had plenty of move, but he just decides to come in contact with us, so we're not really happy about it. But this fight's going to continue. Lap 22 is going to be the next opportunity for an overtake. Coming up the hill, past turn 2, up to turn 3. We're going to take from the outside line. See him swerving there on the inside. Takes a lot of curb to try to cover us off. But we're going to be right in his gearbox, and we're going to have DRS. So it's going to be an easy move down to turn 4 for first place. And it's basically going to be like this for the remainder of the race. It's going to be leapfrogging back and forth. And it's just a matter of leapfrogging at the right time on the final lap to take away that win. Lap 23 now. Max, DRS makes a move on the inside, and we really push him to the inside, not giving him much space to work with. He still manages to get ahead. He has DRS, and he's going to be ahead for now. Alonso up in a P3. Leclerc, Sainz, Hamilton, Gasly, Russell, Stroll, and Albon in the Williams, actually, for our top 10. As Verstappen making the same exact move on the inside. I don't know what it is with this AI, but when I'm using the racing line and I'm going to make that turn, they just jerk to the inside. And there's not really much you can do with it other than adding mods. But for now, we're completely fine with it. We're still racing to the best of our ability here in Austria. And I'm just happy that it's going to be with Verstappen. I would have been happier that it was going to be with Norris, but he probably would have pulled away with that McLaren, as Piastri had a mistake in the pits. Let's go to our commentators.
Well, Martin, it's been a weekend to remember. An early retirement for Lando Norris due to an engine failure has shone the spotlight on Alpine's rookie, who qualified in pole position for today's feature race. As the race has progressed, they are now battling for first place against the reigning champion Max Verstappen.
Max has been fiercely competitive in today's race, with positions going back and forth between them, both of them hoping to make a strong enough move to escape the DRS range of the other driver and pull ahead.
Most of the overtakes we've observed between these two have occurred in Sector 1, where DRS is pivotal, followed by a descent down the hill in Sector 2, allowing for another manoeuvre through Turn 4. As we witness this overtake, it appears there might have been contact. Let's listen in.
What is this guy doing? There's plenty of room on the outside of the turn, and he's pushing me into the apex.
Don't sweat it, Max. It's nothing we can't handle. Just keep racing.
A very calm Christian Horner, while Max is starting to get a bit irritable, don't you think? There was contact earlier in the race from Max through Turn 3, and they have been pretty aggressive towards each other today.
There have been plenty of time where Verstappen has voiced his opinion on other drivers' actions while on track. Not very much looking in the mirror, I would say, but there has been improvement. Ted Kravitz, you were down in the pits during pit stops. Share some developments for us.
Well, Crofty, I did want to point out that Red Bull followed pretty much the same strategy with Verstappen to run against Johnson. Teams saw how easy the grid was splitting up, and Red Bull didn't want to risk and undercut. So that's why they both pit at the same time. As for developments, we have previously confirmed that Castrol Edge will take primary sponsor of Alpine come Silverstone to the remainder of the season. Following the end of the season, Alpine will be rebranded to yet another French outfit, but that news is still to come later in the season. We're also surprised to see development packages coming to V-Carb and Williams, although Austria is a tricky situation to get the results those teams may be looking for. I can sense that those parts were put on in preparation for Silverstone.
Well, Ted, we always enjoy the input. We turn our attention back to the front of the field, where Max Verstappen continues to defend against Johnson, who's knocking at the door of their first career win in F1, or first career podium, if Verstappen has anything to say about it.
It's going to be a really strong fight from Verstappen, really throughout this entire race, ever since Lando Norris had DNF. We're going to be coming up to turn 3, and that's what we do. We brake late, try to close the gap and get the power down as quick as possible. And this fight's still going to continue. Verstappen, P1, myself, P2, Leclerc, Alonso, Sainz, Hamilton fighting Sainz for P5. We make another move here in turn 4. We give him the space so he doesn't have anything to gripe about. And we're side by side coming down the hill into turns 6 and 7. And we managed to hold on to that lead for now. pushing him really wide, having him back out, and then he has to come back at us again to try to make another overtake. Leclerc, 5 seconds back, so that's a standalone fight between myself and Verstappen. Start of lap 31 now. He's going to be on the inside. We're going to be pushing him really strong as we keep our cool. Coming up the hill, 3/10 is Verstappen, as he's going to be making a move on the inside like he has in the past. And it's going to be a similar situation to when the commentators were talking.
Come on, man. He's still pushing me into the apex at turn 3. He can't keep doing this. He needs to leave a space.
We will look into it, Max.
Some commentary between Max and Christian Horner as we continue to fight. And it's going to be another situation like that on the next lap. Lap 32, Verstappen still trying to make a move. Leclerc, 4.2 seconds back now. And it's going to be the same situation here with Max.
This is getting ridiculous. You know, you really need to do something about him cutting me off like that. He's a rookie that knows better than to drive like that.
The stewards see no issue at the moment, Max. You are to continue racing.
And even though we are a rookie, we do feel comfortable driving here in Austria. Like I've said several times, Verstappen looking to make another move here into turn 1 at the start of lap 34. We're really going to be aggressive on the corner. We have the availability to do that. We haven't really been yelled at or talked to by giving warnings for pushing people off the track or making any contact, but we're well within our right to defend the way we are. We're not braking under, we're not moving under braking, we're not trying to force him off the road, we're giving him the space. This fight's going to continue all the way to the final lap as we start the final lap coming up the hill. Max Verstappen, pretty close far back. He's going to make another move on the inside. Let's see what happens as we do it again.
Yeah, he's run me off again. There needs to be an investigation or a penalty or something. This should not be happening multiple times with no actions taken.
We have the situation under control, Max. We have communicated with stewards throughout the last few laps, and they have ruled those moves as fair racing. If you have an issue with it, we can talk about it after the race.
And a very unhappy Max Verstappen as we're coming down the hill. Sector 3, final few corners, and to my excitement, we are going to finish our first race of the season on the top of the podium for P1 here in Austria. Even better from a sprint race weekend.
Nice one. Very lovely drive. On to the next one.
Ah, fantastic drive. That's just fantastic. Amazing. You deserved that race win. Well done, mate.
A fantastic team effort then to secure victory here in the Styrian Alps.
They led from lights out to the flag at the end, and their race victory was never in doubt, was it? Brilliant stuff by them.
Here come today's winning drivers, and what a race this was. This is a team that knows success very well in F1, and they're just itching for even more. Congratulations to the Alpine team for their excellent win today. And with that, we wrap up another weekend of motorsport action. But with more races lined up, be sure to join us when we come back with more Formula One.